podcast day. It's podcast day. Friends, welcome. Welcome into the heyBrownBerry podcast. My name is Mars. I'm known as heyBrownBerry around the interwebs on most social media sites, now including Facebook. I have a heyBrownBerry Facebook page that you are very welcome to join. I am on Ravelry, Instagram, Etsy. I think that's it. I am so happy you decided to join me for another episode of this making podcast. I realized that I had some videos I've been wanting to share with you, and I thought, why not just string them all together and describe what I've been doing this December. Today is Sunday, December 22nd, so it's nice and cool here in South Florida. We've been enjoying some really brisk weather, some be outdoors friendly weather, and I'm actually sitting on my patio right now. It's covered and the day is overcast, so at least the lighting is not so harsh. And that means I may be able to show you a couple of things without blowing out the colors. Thanks so much for spending this time. I am going to launch right into some of what I've been up to. Right next to me, I have just a couple of projects that are representative of some larger things I've been working on. The first thing is a hat that I just recently started. About 2 days ago, my daughter said that she was chatting with a friend of hers from college, and they apparently have seen my Instagram account and had some really nice things to say about my knitting. And in conversation, the friend asked my daughter if I'd be willing to make her a hat. I couldn't resist. I recently finished a pair of stripy socks with some minis that I received in an Advent mini swap. And I didn't use all of my minis because I made some pretty big color blocks in those socks. And I've been thinking about what I could do with the rest of those minis. I considered giving them away, and I might still do that with some of them. And I considered trying to make a project for my home. These are all quite brightly colored minis, beautiful colors. But I thought, what would be the right thing to do with them that would allow them to shine and work together in a project? So this hat commission came right in time because I have been wanting to use up some of my stash. I'm not using superwash and nylon blend yarns as much anymore in my knitting, but I still have some in my stash. And one of them in particular that I love is this beauty. This is a hand-dyed yarn by Grace. Hi, Grace. Grace has a dyeing business under Babel's Traveling Yarns. And I got this from her some time ago when we were at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, either this past Edinburgh Yarn Fest or the one before. But it's been in my stash and the colors are so beautiful. I've been wanting to use it. So I thought all things are coming together for me to be able to use my Advent minis and use this beautiful yarn in a hat for my daughter's friend. What do you think? Essentially what I've been doing is carrying this yarn as the main yarn throughout the hat, along with the mini skeins from my swap. So I'm double stranding to make a nice thick yarn. I would say this is coming out to a heavy DK or worsted weight. And with this being the consistent color, it makes a beautiful background. This is what it looks like double-stranded in the brim of this very simple hat. And then I'm carrying it with the minis so that each color block in the hat has its own flair. And having the single base yarn throughout also gives it some consistency. So it's a mix, and this marled look is just my new favorite. My daughter has been watching it progress and she approves. In the hat, as I'm striping around, I'm actually using a technique for weaving in my ends as I go. I recently posted a video tutorial, which many of you seem to really like, for using up many yarns in a project for color blocks and for stripes. And if I show you the inside of this hat, you'll see the ends of the different yarns that I've been using to carry double. And I'm not going to have to weave any of these in. The tutorial I posted shows how to weave in your ends as you go in a colorful project like this. So if you haven't seen that yet, check it out. In the tutorial, I show it for a sock project, but I'm using it here for this hat and loving it. Once I finish, I should only have my beginning yarn tail to weave in, and very likely the last yarn end once I close off the top of this hat. Fun, fun, fun. Really enjoying that. A quick update on my sewing adventures recently. I'm working through a sew along with my friend Jenny, who is Tiny Paper Foxes on Instagram. She and I are making the Patricia Camilla Pinafore. This is a very versatile shirt or tunic or dress pattern I'm excited to make. But I thought I better start slowly with a simple project. So I fired up my sewing machine to make a sleep mask. And here's what happened. Okay, I'm just popping in here quickly to say that I just made another classic Mars mistake. I'm making an eye mask. This is all the insides. And the trouble I have with sewing is my awareness of where things end up after you do all of the construction is not good. Like, I have a hard time piecing together where a piece of fabric will be when you turn it out. Like, this is going to be turned out from this opening piece. And what I've done is I've sewn the batting in between the inner and outer fabrics. Because in my mind, that's what you want. You want the quilted piece on the inside. But I'm going to turn this right side out. And that means the batting is going to end up on the outside. And one of these pieces would end up on the inside. One of the pieces that I intended to be a back or a front. This is my best friend, my well-loved seam ripper. Off we go again. I'll keep you posted on how things are going with the Pinafore project in an upcoming episode. One of the great things about being not just a podcaster, but a podcast fan is that I am always benefiting from peeking in at what other people are doing by way of their podcasts. I really enjoy the podcast that Lindsay of A Wooden Nest puts on, and it's definitely one of my favorites. It's such a peaceful aesthetic, and yet Lindsay is so unassuming. I find that she does all these beautiful things in her kitchen and in her garden, but it's never presented in a showy sort of way. It's just her allowing us into her life and her family's life, and she's very good about sharing how she does certain things. And one of those things is candle making. Lindsay recently put out a tutorial on very simple beeswax candles. Thank you, Lindsay. And it was so easy to follow that I got inspired that same day and made some beeswax candles myself. I love candlelight, but more than that, I really like the ritual of lighting candles. I like the calm that I feel once a candle is lit and glowing. And so that was my motivation to try this out. And then Lindsay's tutorial was so simple to follow that within less than an hour, I had several candles. I actually reused some beeswax that I had from candles that had burned down pretty low. So they're not the prettiest, but they're so functional that that's all that really matters. And I felt really good about not wasting the wax. What I have is my steamer pot here, a double boiler, and it's pretty easy to just stir it around and let the pellets melt into liquid form so that it's easy to pour. I've heard different schools of thought on whether or not you should add essential oils to things that you burn. I might add a little bit to at least one of these because I do like them. Your mileage may vary. This is a previous candle that I was gifted, and I'm just putting it in the steamer to kind of melt down some of the residue wax that's left so I can clean that container out and use it again. I hope you're finding a cozy way to do some home DIY like I am. What are some things that you're doing around the house while you are wrapping up the year? Any DIY projects you want to share with me? Just tell me about it in the comments. There they are in different states of hardening. The last one that I poured was this. I added to a prior candle. This probably represents what the white beeswax pellets look like the most because it's a fresh pour. It's not a mix of reusing beeswax from old candles. I'm gonna let these sit most likely overnight before I burn any of the wicks. Beautiful thing about using this craft paper or any kind of brown paper as a drop cloth, with safe materials, I can stick this in the fire now and not worry about that burning. It's just beeswax. I've since bought quite a bit more beeswax because I was looking around the house and found we have so many great little containers, some glass, some ceramic, that would be good to hold candles. And it's another project that is so simple to do. I will spend some time with my daughters making more candles for our house and probably for gifts as well. So you'll be seeing some video, or you will have by this point seen some video of that process. And I will link below Lindsay's candle making video in case it's something you're interested in doing too. Emma of the Eldon Woodcraft podcast put together an excellent make-along this year through Instagram and her Ravelry group for the Make 9 2019. Some of you may have heard of the Make 9 Make Along. Essentially, the idea is that at the start of the year, you choose 9 projects that you would like to work on throughout the year. And you're sort of setting a goal to at least make those 9 projects. And what I love about that whole concept is the idea of planning ahead and really taking some time to think about things that you'd like to make. When considering my Make 9, I didn't follow the traditional concept of picking specific patterns. The Make Along is open to any craft, really, and I know that many people chose knitting designs or crochet designs that they wanted to work on, sewing patterns that they wanted to get into. I've even seen some people choose artistic projects for painting and drawing. And I thought those are such good ways to kind of put a welcome boundary around your making in a good way. I went a little bit non-traditional in the sense that instead of picking certain patterns and designs, I decided that I would make within categories. And it gave me the chance to think about what things do I need? What things have I put off but I've been wanting to make? And what would support working from materials that I already have? And so I gave myself a bit of a looser Make 9 kind of, a looser set of categories. So my Make 9, I'll show a picture of it here, was based on types of projects. Making for my home, making for my daughters, making for charity. These are some of the things that I thought within the year I'd like to accomplish. Making with my own hand spun, trying out new fibers. All of these are things that would allow me to choose from a variety of designs or even come up with my own. And this is the second year in a row that I've done a Make 9 in this way, and I'm going to continue again in 2020 because I'm happy to say that I did Make 9 of those projects. And when I look back now at that list and I look at the projects that I made, I feel really good about the why behind them, and I feel that they've been good additions either to my wardrobe or someone else's in the case where I made something for another person. It's also going to tie into my effort to be more intentional in my making in the coming year. I'm very, very fortunate that honestly, I could make just about anything I want from my fabric and fiber stash at this point. So it feels good to know that I can go into the coming year with another set of categories that will allow me to use what I have. Did you do the Make 9 this year? If so, how did it go? Whether you were able to finish or not, how do you feel about the projects that you chose? And will you be doing a Make 9 in 2020? Comment below. I'd love to follow along. The hashtag Make92019 has some gorgeous inspiration, and I'm going to spend some time coming up here soon figuring out what my categories will be. It's possible, in fact, it's probable that I will borrow from this year's categories in some cases and carry some of those over again. For example, my spinning has now gotten a bit better since the beginning of the year, so I feel that I can add the make from my hand spun category and have a bit more leeway in what I can make. When I started spinning, it was primarily on a drop spindle, so my yarn amounts were smaller, and that would mean if I were to do projects, they were smaller, probably accessories, like a hat, for example. Now I'd like to spin with intention and make again from my hand spun, maybe some larger handmades. I have a sweater spin on the go, and I'll tangent here for a second to talk about that because I've made some progress in the last couple of days. My daughter is home from college for several weeks, And that's been fantastic having her here. It's a whole new life experience for us to have one of our children living outside of the house most of the time. So one of the things we've done together is to have a movie night, which was fantastic. I got to share with them one of my favorite movies, which is Good Will Hunting, starring Robin Williams, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Casey Affleck. And Good Will Hunting is just one of those movies I could watch over and over again. Minnie Driver's in it, love her. And my girls had never seen it, so we sat down to have a movie night together, which I really enjoyed. And because it was a repeat watch for me, I was able to spin on my wheel almost throughout the whole movie. And I made some great progress. I'll share with you what my bobbins look like from my wheel. I'm doing this sweater spin as a 2-ply yarn with a combination of several different fibers. And I've got one more bobbin to go. One and a little bit. My intention is that I will have 3 bobbins worth of hand spun, and then I'm going to, across those 3 bobbins, ply them together to make a 2-ply yarn, and then plan out a sweater knit. Whether or not I'll use a pattern by another designer for that sweater is still to be determined. I'm actually feeling a little bit braver about knitting a sweater just according to my measurements and using some of the reference books that I have on my shelf and making something kind of knit to fit. So I'll catch you up on that as I go, but I'm really excited about the progress I was able to make during movie night on that spin. Flashing back a little bit to my discussion of the Make 9 project, the last square in my Make 9 grid that I had not yet filled in as of a week ago was to make something for my home. And that required a bit of thought. And the solution came in somewhat of an unexpected project. My first colorwork sweater was the Fern and Feather sweater by Jennifer Steingass, and it was done as part of a knit along with a group of friends who all met up at the Edinburgh Yarn Fest in 2018. I loved that sweater dearly. It was my first color work. It had yarns in it from Maria, my friend Maria, and from Wing and a Prayer Farm, Tammy and her sheep, and I felt so confident after knitting this colorwork yoked sweater. Tragically, it ended up in the wash and it was felted. Yeah. Realizing that it had been felted was a pretty tragic moment, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I realized how sentimental handmaids can be until something like that happened. So once I realized it was felted, it sat in my closet for over a year. I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. At different times I thought maybe it's still workable and could fit someone of a smaller size, but it had been felted to the point where the fabric was so dense, there was no more elasticity really left in it, and I didn't think it would be a comfortable sweater for someone else. So it sat and it sat and it sat. And for some reason, very recently I thought, what if I turn this into something that can be useful in its current state? I think it might have been watching Natalie felt some slippers. My friend Natalie of Remembrances Pottery is making some felted slippers, and she had shown on her Instagram just a bit of the behind the scenes of her felting some fabric she had knit to make slippers. And I thought, what if I felted the sweater even more to create a really dense fabric and then made something out of that felted wool? And so that's what I did. I shrunk the sweater to about toddler size, and at that point the fabric was so thick you really couldn't see in between any of the stitches anymore. And that actually turned out to be a great way to create some more things from this beloved sweater. I cut it up into pieces. I thought about how I could cut it up so that I could get the most or the largest pieces cutting off the sleeves, cutting off the yoke, and then using the body and making that into separate pieces worked the best. And I was able to get quite a bit out of this tiny sweater. I made some accessories for myself, like this bracelet, which I added a piece of red leather to from my stash. Very simple use of my sleeve cuff. And you can still see some of the ribbing detail that was in there, but you can see how thick it is. And very, very basic straight stitching on the leather. But because red is my favorite color, the combination here is something I love. I made some Christmas tree ornaments by cutting out simple shapes like these hearts. I just added some twine for hanging. I made quite a few coasters. The properties of wool make it so that useful kitchen and house items work well in felted wool. Wool naturally wicks away moisture. It holds in heat. And so I made some coasters in different shapes. It's just a circular one. And you can see some remnants of the fern and feather pattern in there. But what I love is that even the backside where the floats were in the color work is gorgeous too. So I made a couple circular ones, some square ones. I cut out a star shape, and I've just put them around the house. It's funny when you're making things like this, how you discover, oh yeah, we actually needed that thing. So there were a couple rooms in the house where we tend to have our hot tea or glasses of water, and I just tucked in our new coasters, our new felted wool coasters into those spots. Really happy that I could recycle and reuse what was initially a very sad discovery of a felted sweater and make it into something else. And it just fits so well with my goal to be more intentional with my making. It means that I don't have a sweater just sitting unused in the closet anymore. And every time I look at these items, it's still a great memory of an awesome project, which I might remake at some point. I'm feeling much more confident in my color work now, so the thought of jumping into another sweater like that is not so scary. I just want to show you guys this progress keeper on my project, just because I think it's so cute. It's made by Ann Tudor, who runs the company Ann Tudor LLC, and I had the pleasure to meet her at the Vogue Knitting Live event in Columbus, Ohio earlier this year. It's a pig patootie. I am easily entertained. Every time I come to it at the beginning of my round on this hat, I just have a little smile and a little giggle about it. Love it. Friends, what have you been up to? Will you tell me in the comments what things you've been making indoors and outdoors? I am enjoying the time to plan out projects. Of course, being so close to the end of the year, I'm starting to think about what my making will look like next year. I know that spinning will be a bigger part of my making journey, just because every time I sit down to my wheel or I pick up my drop spindle, I realize that I quite enjoy making my own yarn, and I love the slowness of it, to be honest, because you're not really getting instant gratification when you plan to spin yarn for a project, and I am here for it. I am okay with it. On the subject of handspun, if you haven't heard yet, I am teaching a class at the Frame and Fiber Shop in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I have 2 class sessions, February 15th and February 16th. If you want more information and would love to sign up for that class, if you're in the New York, New Jersey area or anywhere in the Northeast that's convenient to get to New Jersey, I'd love to make some handspun with you. Feel free to check the link in the description box below to get details, data carryover from my former work life, to get more details on how to sign up for that class. The new year is coming, and my wish for you is that everything that you love and all that you feel proud of will stay with you in the coming year. And the things that don't serve you anymore, I hope you're able to let them go in a healthful way. I will very likely see you back here again soon. Thanks so much for being here this year, friends. Have a good week. Talk to you soon. Mwah. Bye for now. Hey guys, it's podcast day. It's podcast day. I am testing out the audio, and of course a plane is gonna fly overhead right now because it's a busy travel weekend, I guess. People going home for the holidays, perhaps? Now, testing out the sound using the microphone to see if it helps to dampen any of the outdoor ambiance. Hey BrownBerry Podcast, episode 75, take 43. No, not really. Beautiful.